And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
World Without End is a sequel to a game, or it's made on about a book, which is a sequel to another book. Well, anyway, The Pillars of the Earth, which is a game that came out a couple of years ago, is a game based on a book, a very, very good game. Don't know about the book. And so this is another game based on a book. And as soon as I opened it up and looked at the board and looked at the pieces, and I thought, is this Pillars of the Earth Part 2? And I think that could be a very good description of the game. I'm not sure if it's as good as Pillars of the Earth, but it is an excellent game. There's a lot going on in it. I have a few questions about it, and I'm still wondering how long-term play is going to prove to be with this game, but it has some neat things in it. Let's look at them. All right, here's your game board, which is drawn by the absolutely fantastic Michael Menzel. And you can see this town here and the different things that are being built in the town. And as of with all games like this, you have the different resources. You have your grain, your wood and your stone. And here we got wool and cloth. The red is cloth, the white is wool. And basically what you're doing in this game is you're attempting to get the most points. Big shocker there, I know. But you're doing that by helping build projects. The game starts with this bridge project, which is placed right here. Isn't that neat? And players are going to try to help that bridge. And as the game progresses, different cards may cause other projects to be placed on the board. And these projects will give players different points as long as they are the ones who help build these projects. And so there's some pretty neat features of the game in that regard. It's neat to put the board together. And so each player is going to try to get the most points by helping build these different structures. Players will do so over the course of the game by, these are their houses that they can build, their score marker, but they are also going to be collecting piety during the course of the game. Of course, they'll get the stone and the wood and the grain and the cloth and the wool. The wool and the cloth. Over the course of the game, they'll also be collecting money, they'll be collecting medical knowledge, and they'll be collecting favor with the king. And so there's several different resources that players will be collecting over the course of the game trying to win. The main feature of the game, and one I find fascinating, the best part of this game, is right here, the event cards. You can see a spot where the event cards can be played. The game takes place in 4 chapters. Each chapter is a different year in history. And 6 cards will be pulled out for each chapter. These cards will be turned over, basically forming a round of that chapter. When you pull out a card for a chapter, the player whose turn it is, each player gets to go first once, and turn order is passed around, but the player whose turn order it is going to rotate this card any way they want. Each player is assigned with a position. You're supposed to sit at the table, relative to one of these 4 positions. And however you rotate it, that's what everyone is going to get. So you have to think about not only what do you want, but what are you giving everybody else when you rotate. Like, for example, if I rotate this towards me, I get a victory point. This guy over here gets a cloth, the guy at the top gets a grain, and the guy over there gets $1. But that's not all. If you notice, there's a little red arrow here. And wherever that red arrow points, that's how far you're going to move the marker down on the King's Favor track. So let's look at this track. Let's say I move it 2. So the marker moves 2 here, and it goes around and just keeps going around like this. If it moves 2 here, if I have any medical knowledge, I will get 2 points. If I move it here, I get a cloth. If I move it here, I get 1 point for every favor I have. If I move it here, I lose $1 for the outlaws. And so when you're looking at this card and rotating it, not only are you looking at how you rotate it, but you're also looking at how it moves that marker. That's a really neat effect. Also, the card has an event on it which affects everybody and must be played. And some of these events are blue, like this one here, which means it's placed up there near the top of the board and will stay in effect for the rest of this chapter. After everyone has done that, we go to the next part of each round. Each player has 12 action cards. And for each of the 6 rounds, they are going to play one of these action cards, and they are going to discard another one, so that they're going to play 6 and discard 6. Each of the action cards do different things. Some of them are pretty obvious, like this one here. It says take 1 stone from the quarry or 1 wood from the forest. Other ones, like this one, simply take 1 piety from the cathedral. Take 1 grain from the field. This one here, it acts as the same card that you played last time. This one lets you move the favor marker and get whatever the next favor track is. But one that's really important is this one here, the building the project. You can put any of these wood or stone resources that you've collected, and you can place them on one of the building projects on the board, getting 3 points for each one you put on. So for example, the bridge here needs stone. If I put 2 stone on there, I will get 6 points. Once the bridge is completed, everyone shouts hoorah and we move on. Another card lets you put donate towards the completion of a project. And if that project is completed and you have a donation marker there, you will get a reward. Like here you get a victory point and $3. And so these different cards allow you to do different things. Some allow you to pay money and a resource to build one of these houses, which look like they came from Settlers of Catan, on one of these spots here. You can build several houses, and then in a future turn, you can play one of your event cards that lets you take rent. Like if I have a house here, I get $2, and here I get a King's Favor. Here I get medical knowledge, and here I get wood. And there's different spots where you can build them to get different resources in the future. In chapters 3 and 4, there is a plague that occurs. Little plague tokens are put on all these different houses in the middle of the village. And depending on the event card that's turned over, different plagues will arrive at different houses. And players will have to use their medical knowledge to cure that house, which gives them points and possibly a resource from curing that area. And players are utilizing all this to get as many points as they can. But there's also a drain on players. Each turn, players have to pay 2 grain and 2 piety, and whatever number is rolled on this die as monetary taxes. And if they don't do that, they will not only lose victory points, but some negative effect will happen to them as outlined on the reference card that players have. So there's always this feeling of overwhelmingness and having to pay all these different things that you have to between turns, and you're trying to get resources so that you can build in these projects and get points, or get points for curing diseases, or get points maybe through a few other event cards and such. And at the end of the 4th chapter, after 24 rounds, the player who has the most points is the winner. I'll say right now that my one problem with the game is that the end is not nearly as exciting as I thought it might be. There's really no hidden information. You can get some points for resources and money, but it's not really that big of a deal. So if someone has a very strong lead, they're not going to fall at the end, or there's no secret information. Other than that, though, it's really neat. I really like the orientating of the cards as you put them down and get the resources. That's a neat mechanic, and since it's a central one of the game, I like it. Playing the action cards is a neat idea, but we've seen that before in games, and moving the marker, rondelle, whatever, is nice. I like putting these figures on the board as you complete them, as you finish each one and building them up. And it has a very good theme to the game, although we laughed about sometimes some of the stuff like rent for your house, getting piety. How does that work? Do you knock down their door and they hand you a Bible or pray for you a little bit? Or do you pay them and they take your spot in the church for you that weekend? I don't know. But, I mean, there's some funny things about the game. But there's a lot going on. And it's one of those games where you're really going to feel like you don't have time to get everything done. Beyond all that, I found it very enjoyable. I'm not sure it's a great game, but it's certainly a very good one. And if you like Pillars of the Earth, it has a very similar feel.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.